Good evening, everybody. This is System Chalk with, I think, the 74th episode of the Apostle Obsonate playthrough of Cultist Simulator, playing as Ike Upscribe. This is going to be one of these episodes where it doesn't serve me well to have this in a playlist because I probably talked about my plans early on. Sorry, not early on, but I talked about my plans at the end, and they may be entirely different from what I had in mind. So, if memory serves, we have a Callagine and a Maid in the Mirror. Those two are right there. We were on our way to to be sort of ransacking some expeditions, but I also seem to recall that we had gotten at least one Lone and Level Sands, possibly more than one. So, the river, wrote the sage Mech in the Book of the Centipede, runs through the sands out of myth and into legend. This is the place the centipede was born, they say, the sands of which Mech hide perilous curiosities. My monitor's a little further away than it normally is, so I might be a little slow in reading the text. My apologies for that, but I wanted to get a recording done in a timely fashion. Okay, so the upgrade here should be happening. So we'll have, after the 51 seconds pass here, we should have one more trip to just get that last Lone and Level Sands sort of location, and then we should just be taking the cult out for a bunch of runs. This means, of course, that we are coming near the end of our time with Glover and Glover. We've got a pretty good stock of funds, and in the worst case scenario, I can always paint and sell off some... well, I guess I can't sell off things like the books because I will be... I'll be doing the expeditions, but I have some alternatives if things get a bit dire as far as the paintings are concerned. And of course, remembering that the whole point behind this is to do just a really big run of different locations, ideally also researching the books that I find in order to be able to eliminate all of the notoriety once we go and find a new location. So with all that prep work, let's just let the timers run and actually put the plan into motion. So we've got a season of despair coming up. I don't think we have any dread, nor do I have anything that will be generating dread. It's really just a matter here of keeping the holding pattern for my existing recruits. And then, of course, we are going to need replenishment for our blood, but that's going to depend on the season of ambitions. That's more under Paul Samuelson's control rather than ours. We can only mitigate the effects. Considering the evidence, if a hunter has found notoriety, they will use it to try and create or upgrade evidence. If they're meticulous, they'll always succeed. If they're erratic, they're more likely to fail, but they can occasionally create evidence even without notoriety. Okay, so we've increased our knowledge of the secret histories behind the one we know. I forgot that we had used fascination for that, so a fleeting reminiscence wouldn't be out of place, but I think we can handle ourselves without it. We'll find out whether or not a season of visions is coming up shortly after. I don't think there's anything else for me to be doing with the study verb right now. I suppose I could, take a shot with the unresolved ambiguity if I really felt up to it. But then I also don't have the glimmering and erudition, so that would be a very short-lived little project. So let's just leave it be for now. We'll wait the 9 seconds to locate the tombs, and then we'll go through the Vagabonds map again. Okay, so hopefully it's not a season of visions. Nope, it's a season of ambitions, so overall we're looking good as far as that upgrade is concerned. Now, I may want to try and upgrade the unresolved ambiguity here. I suppose one thing I can do as well, again, I don't have the glimmering, so that doesn't really matter. But I can at least get that, so let's read a sentimental literature. We're not doing anything with the study verb right now. So, Callagine and Maid in the Mirror have a chat. We have found the star-shattered fane, and then at least one more Vagabonds map. We'll see how the rest goes. And the sick room grows close and stale. It's time to get up. So I suppose the question now is there anything that I want to be doing with the dream slot? Obviously, going through the peacock door would be nice. We're short on bronze Spintrea, though. I suppose I could try going through the stag door again. It's not the most compelling choice because it doesn't really offer me a whole lot at the moment, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. We have 57 seconds before the delivery arrives, so I think if we're going to be going into the Mansis, now is the time. The stag door is the Adept's Gate. To pass it is to be initiated into the first true mystery of the House of the Sun. The head Gearby weeps to see me enter where it cannot, but it must let me pass. The scarred valves of the door grind open. Alright, so in 1 minute we'll be visiting the Mausoleum of Wolves, and I think probably It's a tough call as to whether or not I'll let the fascination get taken, or I'll take out the fascination with the fleeting reminiscence, or if I'll just let it expire on its own. Alright, I review tidy columns of figures in a tidy 5th floor room. From my office window, I can see the river. My secretary brings me a hot drink every 59 minutes. The river is the color of rain. Let's do one more trip to Glover & Glover again. It doesn't hurt to have some extra money, and we know that as soon as notoriety pops up, we are going to have trouble at work. So we'll milk it for all it's worth. We are going to have to sort of convince the board to let me back once we let time pass, so it doesn't hurt to just get myself a little extra runway. We're half a minute away from starting the show. Of course, the original motivation for upgrading the Forgotten Chronicle would have been the fact that we had Fascination to upgrade here. But it probably isn't a bad idea for me to upgrade Forgotten Chronicles and Forbidden Epics over time anyway, because those are going to be the fuel for later upgrades once we have a library. Alright, I've passed the time, I've been inclined to tears, and afterwards inclined to laughter. Meanwhile, the world continues. So there's my glimmering, which may or may not be used as an input for an upgrade. 5 seconds away from Poisoned Blood, 7.9, so we are going to have a little bit of an overlap. And Season of Vision's coming up, so probably just as well this fascination is going away. Okay, so we've got a Trembling Heat or a Painted River. Now, the fact that there is the... So I think the Painted River might actually have a... I think the Painted River might have a Secret Histories waiting for me, but in this case I'm going to grab the Trembling Heat. Well, if I do that, I'm never going to know. So let's do the Ascent of Knives. The Ascent of Knives might actually have Winter. But that'll eventually turn into Dread. The Painted River is the greater threat at the moment, though, just because if I get Fascination, that's going to get picked up in the... Then again, I've got the No, you know what? Let's do it. It just occurred to me that I have the Fleeting Reminiscence to kill the Fascination even if I got it. And turns out all of my worrying was for nothing. I am ready to improve. The Painted River runs from a great chamber near the White Door, far through the Mansis to its far edge, where it enters a painted delta of far cloud. I voyaged half its length last night with a stern-faced captain beneath a rust-red sail. As the clouds rose before us, the sailors raised a yearning shanty and close-hauled the sails to best use the painted wind. And all the while, the captain and I discoursed of the secrets of the House of the Sun. So I don't think this is very useful for upgrades. I believe I have to use a regular erudition and not a lesson learned when upgrading lore. But I'll make it work. All right, and we have Lagun's Tomb. So again, there's no surprises here, right? We have five locations in one sector, 3 in another, so that's going to be a total of 8. We should have more than enough in terms of funds to be able to carry on the tasks and whatnot. More importantly, we've got the 2 summons to carry us through. So, the Mausoleum of Wolves. This chilly monument was built long before Rome fell. Stone wolves watched the door. A chamber within was carved from rock to await fragments of the sun at its prophesied funeral procession. That procession never came, but the dead are still drawn near. So, clearly from the description, you would imagine that there's a lot of winter influence here, which will probably, Made in the Mirror will probably be helpful here. And of course, if we want any verification, we can read the description. The game will come out and tell us in a little bit, but as always, it's nice to try and anticipate. I'm not going to change my opening group, right? These are the summons, so they have an expiry. But it's just kind of nice to be able to say, okay, well, I have an idea about what we're going to be coming up against. Did the sun ever come here when its death was pronounced? Perhaps that pronouncement was premature. In any case, if we usurp its progress, we'll have to face avalanches, furious ghosts, and a door sealed by adept architects. Let's be ready. Okay, so avalanches, this will imply winter and possibly forge. Furious ghosts, definitely winter, and then presumably edge. And a door sealed by adept architects, so I would assume they're forge or knock. So this is actually a pretty good little combo that we've got. Now, I suppose there's no point in having the Spintrea if I'm not going to use it. What I am going to do first, though, is get some commissions from any remaining commissions. and then we can start getting to work on these right away once the Glover and Glover job's done. All right. A courier has arrived from our delight with a single vial of their most holy blood. So we will... Oh, I gotta remember. Okay, Season of Visions is still coming up. It's good that I didn't waste that fleeting reminiscence because, of course, we are going to be generating fascination off of our Dream of the End. I consume the little vial of blood, lie back, close my eyes. Tomorrow I will be stronger. Dr. Redeem would like a substantial commission on the secret histories. Oops. I hate it when I do that. Alright. It's more or less where it should be. I review tidy columns of figures in a tidy fifth floor room. From my office window, I can see the river. My secretary brings me a hot drink every 59 minutes. The river is the color of rain. So, I probably have enough time to actually do one more work at Glover and Glover, but let's get on with it, right? Eventually, we are no longer going to be able to sustain employment in Glover and Glover. There's no point in running the risk any further. So let's start with our heart commission. Grab the Formula Vigilant. Now, one of the reasons why I'm doing a high-level heart here is because it is actually rather desirable for me to have the event that comes up from heart lore, and extra vitality is never a bad thing, especially if you have a season of sickness. I'm a little more reluctant to do that for things that could potentially... So Moth is a great example of this. Restlessness can eventually become despair. Well, dread and then despair. So, you know, it's a balancing act. However, I did say that I was going to take Tristan, so this is a little risky just because, obviously, I did say that I might need some Forge for the expedition, but it would seem that using up my Forge followers early probably makes a little bit more sense than using them at the time closer to when I'm actually going to need them. So this tends to take longer than most follower actions that I can do. But I think we should be able to handle it. And of course, we've got Valsine as a backup. I am much recovered. More than that, I'm sumptuous. The sclera of my eyes, the veins in my wrists are aswim with gorgeous serums. When the vigilation comes, I will be the centerpiece for our delight to prove their appetite to enact the grail. Alright, so there's our Saber's Blood. We will get rid of this fascination immediately because this is a threat to the playthrough. The doors of vision swing wide. A little darkness will mellow my light. Even dread has its uses. So there's a trick that, I don't know, so some of the stuff that I know about what other people do with the game is a little old-fashioned because I tend to be a bit of a hermit when these things come, but there is an approach that people will take for this game where they will let at least one health fall to decrepitude, and this is because you can beg with decrepitude, and while it will, so it'll generate funds, it will also generate dread. Obviously, it's unpleasant to be reduced to begging on the street. Now, this is a very reliable way of generating dread, but one of the drawbacks for me is, again, you know, if you've learned anything over 70 episodes with me, is that even after being very familiar with this game, each of these cards are not just mechanics to shuffle around a board, but there's a little bit of a story that's kind of going on in the background. And so it's hard to imagine willingly going into that particular scenario. That doesn't mean that you can't, right? I mean, you've got George Orwell writing about his experience, down and out in London and Paris. So, you know, and there are people who have put themselves into great hardship. I mean, I'd take George Orwell as the example again, I suppose. But, you know, you have plenty of examples of very good writers who are not necessarily putting themselves in comfortable situations, despite perhaps having the option, because they're wanting to do the right thing. And so there's lots of different ways that you can justify a particular decrepitude option. But to me, just because I know it is something that I would be doing purely for mechanical benefits, I've not yet quite gotten to a point where I've justified it for myself. And that's the main reason why I don't do that. But it's occurred to me that I've kind of referred to that strategy a bunch of different times, and I don't think I've ever explicitly mentioned it, or at least how it works. And of course, the game may have changed. There have definitely been some changes to the game since I was regularly streaming it, and so certain strategies may no longer apply quite as well. Okay, so we've got the high passes. Forge will sustain us, winter will shield us. We've got the fretful dead who want edge or winter, and then finally the warded door, which forge or knock. So it seems to me here that it's, winter or forge really are the right choices here. We already have the 10, so I don't know if there's anything else that I can really gain. So I suppose at this point we'll just add Valsine and be done with it. Now I'm a little nervous about... No, actually I shouldn't be nervous about that because it's only one scar. If there were two, I should be nervous about it because if there is the failure and Valsine is the one to get hit, then, we're in trouble. But I don't see any reason why. I mean, if I want to be really cautious, I think the practical disciple should actually be enough, but... That's cheating. Okay, so Season of Despair coming up next. The words contain knowledge, and now I contain it. It's a little like theft, a little like feasting, and a little like the progress of an infectious disease. So because we don't have anything else to be reading right now, let's move our Forgotten Chronicle up to a higher level. So the Forgotten Chronicle is going to require both the Erudition and the Glimmering. Oops, or it would if I could remember to actually lock in the action. We call upon the Madrigard who cannot be unbalanced. The hour called the Madrigard is at home in the cold. She will almost certainly keep us from falling. So of course we could add Violet, but it doesn't really change anything. And likewise, if... Oh, actually I've already used up my Forge follower, so never mind. Alright, we've got an extensive treatise on Heart. So this, of course, would be a great time for me to turn it in, except that I'm already working on the... I'm already working on repairing the mirror. So there's the Bronze Betrayer. Board's getting a little cranky, but that's life. So it's really clear that I could have handled quite a bit more in terms of clever jobs, but I just don't see any point in risking the job to get a little extra money. Let's go back through the Snag Door. History is less certain than we are taught. I can learn from the study of its blurred edges. Wisdom is a country, and these are its maps. Frostguard and Shivering, we've made it through the mountains. All right. It's interesting. So obviously it says we, but I do rather love this image of sitting at home, enjoying some time off work, reading the secret histories a little more casually because it's not as intense as some of the other lore that we've been reading. Meanwhile, everybody is busy freezing in the mountains. All right, let's. I guess we should turn in with Count Jannings. I don't see any benefit to sitting on that. I have what was requested. Difficulty at work, a risk of demotion. Considerable latitude is allowed in someone in my position, but my absence has been noted, and I will have to charm the Elder Glover. I'm sure some of you have had the experience of a coworker who's like this, where it feels like doesn't really matter what they do. They seem to always get away with underworking. Okay, so wait a minute. Where'd my... Oh no, the commission's being built. That's right. Alright, this is a puzzle with missing pieces. I might find those pieces in the odd corners of scholarship. So the Erudition now, unfortunately the Glimmering might vanish before its time. The expedition continues. Our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds now, or I could send another follower. Now we will need one additional funds card because there are 3 obstacles and we can only put 2 in the opening of the expedition. This is another thing that's important to remember. If you don't start off really well like we did with the Maiden Mirror and the Callagine, it's not very hard to add enough followers to overcome the challenges, or at least to have the highest level to overcome the challenges. But if you start off, let's say I started off with a lantern and a heart. In that particular case, I would need to rebuild my levels, and I would need to rebuild my levels with 2 followers of each aspect. And then on top of that, I would need to do that in an order that also allows me to fold in funds. And of course, if I fail to do that in the right order, or even if I do it in the right order, there's always the chance that it will turn into that there will be a failure, and as a consequence, I may lose a follower on the way. So it becomes a little more perilous. All right, we'll turn in with Madame Bichet. There's no benefit to keeping that stuck in the... there's no reason to keep that stuck without any work. And we're kind of close to the end of the time. Let's see if we can get past at least one more. Well, we'll set up for at least one more obstacle. Okay, so I can grab another Forgotten Chronicle. Let's go for the Painted River, though. All right, Forbidden Epic. The attention of the hours is drawn to the bloodiest wars. Afterwards, the histories are braided like... Actually, you know what? This will be a good place to end. So, there's a great chamber in the Mansis through which the Painted River flows. The vagabond, it is claimed, painted it from memory in the years before she left the house. Certainly, there are histories concealed in its design. I traced them with my hand last night. There were fragments of aquamarine paint beneath my nails, flecks of gold leaf when I was done. So we finally hit that milestone that we were looking for quite a while. We're back on expeditions. We've already begun the Mausoleum of Wolves. So again, it's going to be quite a bit like this. Obviously, not all of them will line up well with Winter and Forge, but the intention is just going to be that we claim as many of these as we can. Hopefully, we get a lot of books so that we'll be able to read them. We want to try and get through this as quickly as we can in order to be able to basically amass a whole bunch of notoriety that we will then sweep away with one grand stroke. It is very likely we will have a season of suspicion or some other inconvenience that happens in between, but it's at this point here, it's not a bad idea to just sort of have a short to medium term goal. There's very few situations where I think the Weary Detective is really going to be able to hurt us. But as long as we have some, have a little stuff left in the tank, we have a little bit left in the tank to be able to deal with them. I think we should be able to go through it. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. I always appreciate your comments, your likes, your views. I know there's a little bit of a dip, I think, in the viewership overall, which is fine. I mean, I kind of expected this over a long period of time. But particularly for those of you who have been watching from the very start of this series, I wanted to take a special moment and say thank you for this, because it is not lost on me on how long I have been doing this, and the fact that there is still a regular number of you that continues to watch, whether you do so silently or whether you offer words of encouragement in the comments. Those are things that are not lost on me, and it's always nice to take a second to acknowledge. And of course, if you're a new viewer, thank you very much for watching, because that's really the best we can ever ask, is a chance to entertain you. I will be back on Friday, 6:30 Eastern Time. See you then.